before there were mirrors, before you learned how to smile for them, before anyone told you what you were allowed to be. There was something older living in you, a current beneath the surface, a slow pulse that never stopped beating. Even when the world got loud, Carl Jung called this the collective unconscious, not a metaphor, not a theory, a real terrain, an ocean beneath the floor of the mind. We carry a shared psychic inheritance, patterns older than memory, not personal stories, human stories, dreams passed down, like blood encoded in symbol and instinct. These shapes, these blueprints, he called archetypes. Archetypes aren't characters in books. They aren't gods. They're forces. They're moods. They move behind the eyes and inside the chest. You've seen them, even if you didn't know their names. A stranger in a dream, a woman with a gift, a child holding fire. These aren't just dreams. They are signals. The unconscious speaks in images, not language. It shows what the mind refuses to see, not to trick you, but to make you whole. Imagine your mind as a stage. The lights are on, the audience is watching, and you're playing a role. That role is the persona, the mask, the part you play to be accepted. You wear it at work, you wear it at dinner, sometimes even when you're alone. But behind that mask, there's something watching. That is the self, not your habits, not your personality, not your name. The self is the whole. It watches, it waits. The self isn't a goal. It's not something you become. It's something you remember. Like waking inside a dream and knowing you've been here before. But to remember it, you have to meet the parts of you left behind, the parts in shadow. Before we go there, we stay with the patterns, the ones shaped before. Thought. Every culture has a hero, a mother, a trickster, a sage. Why? Because they aren't just stories, they're maps, psychic blueprints, wrapped in different skins. They help us understand ourselves, even when we don't know what we're looking for. You're not just hearing these stories, you're living them. Every heartbreak, every rebellion, every obsession, an old myth playing through a new body. Jung saw these patterns not just in myth, but in dreams, in symbols. In daily life, you fall in love. You project the anima or animus onto the other. The inner opposite, the missing half, appears in someone else's face. But it's you, reaching for your own pieces. You hate someone, can't explain why. You're seeing the shadow, the part you buried, now walking outside you. These aren't ideas. They're the operating system of the human soul. We all dream the same shapes, different colors, same pulse. Let the words melt. Let the images settle. We're only beginning. You didn't invent your mind. You inherited it, not just from your parents, but from every ancestor who survived long enough to dream. The first fire watcher, the cave painter, the mother giving birth under the moon. All of them are inside you, not in memory, but in form. Your fear of the dark, your need to belong, your love of music. None of these were taught. They were remembered. This is the depth Jung spoke of, a knowing that is not conscious, but instinctual, a blueprint of what it means to be human. You don't need to believe in archetypes. They are already shaping you, in how you walk into a room, in who you envy, in what you run from. They show up when you say yes too quickly, when you stay too long, when you speak the words you swore you'd never say. You are not doing this wrong. You are not broken. You are following a script, one that was written in bone, but can be rewritten in awareness. That is the work, not to erase the archetypes, but to live them consciously. Close your eyes. feel the patterns move inside you? Can you sense the parts of you that want to protect? The parts that want to disappear? The one who wants to save? The one who wants to burn everything down? None of them are wrong. They are all pieces of a larger you, each one with a face, each one with a voice, each one with a story. And you are the stage where they meet. This is why Jung called individuation a spiral, not a ladder, not a straight path upward, but a circling inward, a remembering. You don't conquer the unconscious. You learn to listen to it. You learn to speak its language. Symbol, pattern, repetition, dream. Everything you avoid will keep returning, not to punish, but to be understood. There's a dream you've had more than once, or a moment in a film that moved you more than it should. These are not accidents. They are echoes, echoes from that deep sea beneath your waking mind, where the archetypes wait, not as enemies, but as invitations. The self is not made in the light. It is made in the tension between opposites, between what you show and what you hide, between who you are and who you could be. And the only way to get there is to stop running. The unconscious does not speak in commandments, it speaks in symbols. The locked door, the hidden child, the animal watching you in silence. You don't have to understand them. You only have to feel when they appear. Your reaction is the translation, the sudden grief, the fear, the desire. That's the voice of something older than language. Don't dismiss it. Don't rush to analyze it. Just stay with it. Breathe. You are not just a person. You are a psychic ecosystem. A myth acting itself out. A vessel of memory. A reflection of something far older than you. And you are allowed to change the story. But first, you have to know what story you're in. There's a part of you don't like to look at, not because it's wrong, but because it wasn't allowed. The parts that got punished, ignored, mocked, or feared. Your anger, your desire, your jealousy, your sensitivity, your wildness. They didn't die. They just went underground. Jung called this space the shadow. It holds what you hide to survive. Everything you were told not to be. Everything you were afraid to become. You didn't bury it. You just learned not to feel it. You became who the world needed you to be, and the rest fell below the floor of awareness. But the shadow doesn't stay quiet. It moves. It leaks. It projects. You see it in the people who irritate you, the ones you judge too fast, or hate without knowing why. You think it's about them, but it's something in you, something familiar, something unclaimed. You feel it in dreams, when you're chased, when you lose control, when you meet something monstrous and wake with a pulse. You don't understand. It's not trying to harm you, it's trying to return. The shadow isn't evil, it's exiled potential. There's power in it, truth in it. There are instincts in the dark that were never meant to be erased, only held understood and reintegrated. The shadow isn't what's wrong with you, it's what was left behind. To face it, you have to stop running. You have to sit with discomfort without solving it, without fixing it, just watching it breathe. You have to look at your own reflection when it's not smiling. Sometimes the shadow is sadness you were taught to push down. Sometimes it's rage that has nowhere to go. Sometimes it's desire that doesn't fit your image, or fear that makes you feel weak. All of it is part of you. You can't become whole by choosing only light. Healing isn't positivity, it's honesty. You don't kill the shadow. You listen to it. You let it speak. You let it feel. You let it hurt without pushing it away. In that there's a kind of liberation, the freedom of not hiding anymore, the freedom of not needing to be good just to be real. Some people never meet their shadow. They live as masks, always running from something unnamed, trying to prove they're fine, trying to stay liked, trying to keep the mask from cracking, but it always cracks, because you can't outrun the part of you that never left. The shadow comes back as addiction, as obsession, as depression, as the parts of your life that repeat again and again until you finally stop and look, not to fix, but to understand, to remember. The pain you avoid carries the map back to yourself, and the shadow is the first doorway. It asks, what are you afraid of inside yourself? What are you ashamed of? Who did you have to become to feel safe? And what did that cost? These are not questions of blame. They are questions of becoming. You were not born to be perfect. You were born to be whole, and wholeness includes the dark. Sometimes what you hate in others is the seed of your own potential, twisted by disowning. What you attack might be what you envy. What you envy might be what you fear. The shadow speaks through contradiction. It doesn't care about politeness. It cares about truth. And when you bring it into light, not to judge it, but to integrate it, something softens, something opens. The mask begins to slip, and underneath it, there is something more alive than you ever expected. This is where the journey turns. This is where the myths descend into the underworld, not to die, but to remember. You don't need to destroy the shadow. You need to meet it, like an old friend. You forgot one who knew you before the world got loud, before you broke yourself to belong. You will find pieces of your voice down there, pieces of your instinct, your creativity, your sacred rage, your unfiltered grief, the things that make you human and more than human, the fire that was buried so you could be safe. It's time to come back to that fire, gently, carefully, with breath, with truth. You are not wrong. You are returning. The descent is sacred, and the darkness is a teacher. Jung believed the persona was not just a personal mask, but a psychic structure born from the social contract. It is the role you adopt so others will know what to do with you. Not to deceive, but to function. You wear it to belong, to survive, to be legible, to be liked. You shape it through approval and punishment, through imitation, through silence, through praise. At first, it protects you. You find the version of yourself that earns smiles, that avoids rejection, that gets invited back in. And so it becomes reflex. This voice, this face, this timing, this tone. Is it really yours? Or is it a mask you forgot you were wearing? Jung said, the persona is a compromise between the individual and society. You must have one, but you must not become it. Because once you believe the mask is your face, you've begun to vanish. You might succeed, but feel hollow. You might be loved, but never touched. You might be surrounded, but no one really knows you. Because the mask smiles, even when the soul is aching. We live in a culture of persona, entire economies built on self-curation, performance as identity, influence as proof of existence. Everywhere masks applauding other masks, and somewhere underneath a quiet grief that no one wants to name. This is not a judgment. This is a reckoning. We are trained to perform, trained to please, to present, to adapt to every room, until we no longer know what we actually feel when no one's watching. You say the right things, but the words feel far away. You laugh, but not from the gut. You connect, but your body is numb. These are the symptoms of over-identification. The self watches as the persona takes over, and eventually the the body protests. You feel the fatigue of being acceptable, of being consistent, of being understood by people who don't know you because you've never let them. You forgot how. This is the burn of the mask. It begins as protection and becomes exile. You are safe, but separated, polished, but parched. Jung warned that the collapse of the persona feels like death because it is, but not the death of you, the death of the illusion you mistook for self. And in that death, something deeper breathes. The self, not loud, not performative, but real. It waits beneath the noise, beneath the identity, beneath the role. You don't destroy the persona. You recognize it. You learn to wear it, but not confuse it with being. To step into character when needed, and step out when it's done. To speak the language of the world without forgetting your native tongue. You are not the mask. You are the one who shaped it. You are the watcher beneath the actor. And the true turning point isn't when you take the mask off, but when you no longer fear what lives beneath it. Because what lives beneath it isn't chaos, isn't failure, isn't emptiness. It's presence. You feel it in the pauses, in the way your body softens when you're alone and not performing. You sense it when you cry without planning to, when you laugh and it startles you, when you say something and hear your own truth for the first time. That's the self coming back into view. It doesn't want to destroy your world. It just wants to be in it. It wants to breathe with you, move with you, speak with you, love with you. Not as a brand, not as a concept, but as a presence. So ask, where did I trade truth for approval? Where do I feel known but not seen? When did I stop trusting that I could be both real and loved? There is no single moment of return. It is slow, it is layered, it is sometimes lonely, but the silence becomes sacred, the pauses become peaceful, the confusion becomes spacious, because finally you are not acting, you are being. The persona can come with you, but it cannot lead. It cannot decide who you are or why you're here. Only the self knows that, and the self is patient but persistent. It will keep knocking until you answer not with performance, but with presence. There is a voice inside you that does not sound like you, but feels like home. Sometimes it whispers, sometimes it seduces, sometimes it warns, sometimes it dreams. Jung called this voice the anima, or the animus, the inner feminine within the masculine, the inner masculine within the feminine. Not roles, not gender, not identity, but polarity. You are not singular. You are a conversation of opposites, longing to merge. From birth, you are taught to become half, to perform masculinity, to perform femininity, to amputate what doesn't match your assigned mask. Boys are taught to kill softness. Girls are taught to silence fire. But the psyche remembers both, even if the world forgets. The anima and animus live in the depths of the unconscious like archetypal partners, not lovers but mirrors. They appear in dreams, in projections, in stories, in obsessions, in our romantic collapses. You see someone, you feel magnetized, you tell yourself it's love, but it's often recognition. The inner opposite projected onto another. Jung said, the more repressed, the anima, or animus, the more powerful the projection. You don't just fall in love, you fall into yourself, reflected in someone else. The anima appears as muse, as mystery, as longing for depth and surrender. When exiled, she becomes the fantasy, the seductress, the unattainable. The animus appears as logic, as drive, as judgment, as voice of certainty in a world of doubt. When exiled, he becomes the tyrant, the critic, the inner oppressor. To meet them clearly, you must clear the distortion. You must remove the face and find the symbol. Ask, who is this person awakening in me? What archetype am I chasing? Who have I made divine, and what inside me have I denied? This is not about romance, it's about inner ecology, the psychic balance between doing and being, holding and yielding, knowing and wondering. The anima teaches the masculine to feel, to dissolve, to imagine, to grieve. The animus teaches the feminine to act, to direct, to hold structure, to say no with strength. And when they begin to speak to one another, you feel it in your art, in your clarity, in your softness that holds its own weight, in your discipline that doesn't demand violence. This is what Jung meant by individuation, not becoming someone else, but becoming whole enough to contain all that you are. You are not your polarity. You are the dance between them. You will still love. You will still project. But now you will recognize the game. You will ask, what is this person showing me that I forgot I carried? Why does their presence wake up an ancient part of me? And how can I reclaim that part instead of chasing its ghost? When the anima is integrated, she becomes intuition, creativity, depth, compassion, spiritual opening. When the animus is integrated, he becomes clarity, focus, boundaries, vision, protective force. Together, they are the inner marriage, the sacred union, the cosmic androgyny at the heart of alchemy. Jung saw this union not as perfection, but as a bridge to the self. The self is the whole, and it is made possible only when the opposites cease their war and begin to listen. You were never meant to be one thing. You are a myth, wrapped in mystery, capable of holding both fire and water in the same breath, capable of commanding and surrendering, loving and liberating, creating and becoming. Ask, where have I lost my softness? Where have I buried my strength? Where do I worship an ideal that is actually a part of me, waiting to return? You are not too much. You are just not yet united. The anima is the inner well. The animus is the inner sword. One dreams, the other acts. Both are sacred, and when they meet, not in theory, but in embodiment, you feel it. You create more easily. You rest more fully. You no longer reach outward for what you carry within. You stop performing soul and begin to live it. This is not the end. This is the beginning of the center, and from that center, everything radiates. There is no straight path to the self. Jung called it a spiral, a circling inward, a return to something ancient and unclaimed. Not a ladder, not a mountain, a labyrinth. The goal is not escape. The goal is integration. The self is not the ego. It is not the story you tell or the dream you post. It is not a title, a talent, a pattern, or a pain. It is what watches all of it, what holds the opposites, what breathes when you forget to, what remembers when you collapse. It is the totality of who you are and who you are becoming and everything you have disowned. On the way there, you do not become the self. You remember it. It was never lost, only buried beneath the mask, beneath the wounds, beneath the noise. Individuation is the process of uncovering what has always been whole, but wholeness is not perfection. It is contradiction held in stillness. You with all your mistakes, your shame, your beauty, your rawness, you in totality. Most people don't make it this far. The descent is too dark, the mirror too clear, the stillness too loud. But if you've arrived here, if you're still listening, then something inside you is ready. The spiral draws you in, and what you meet is everything you avoided: the dreams, the projections, the rage, the grief, the masks, the archetypes, the divine within, the darkness below. It all returns. not to destroy you, but to be welcomed home. The self is not a prize. It is a presence, a state of being, where nothing is left out. You stop asking, am I doing it right? You start asking, am I fully here? Jung wrote that the self is often symbolized as a circle, a mandala, a temple with 4 gates, a center that holds. Because the self is the axis around which your psyche turns. Everything you've encountered was orbit. This is center. When you live from ego, you seek control, certainty, dominance. When you begin to align with the self, you seek depth, truth, and connection, regardless of outcome. The self does not fear contradiction. It contains it without shame. It says, yes, I am both light and dark. I am both joy and shadow. I am the question and the one asking. This is what it means to come into wholeness. You stop dividing yourself into fragments. You stop chasing personas to earn your place. You begin to walk as if you belong, because you know you were never separate, only split. You feel it in your dreams, the circle, the door, the center you keep returning to, the message you forgot and remember again and again, in symbols, in silence, in breath. The self does not shout. It hums, it pulses, it speaks through resonance. You know you've touched it, not when you feel enlightened, but when you feel uncomplicated. You don't need to perform, you don't need to explain, you simply are, and that is enough. And this is where the spiral turns again, not upward, but inward, deeper still. Because individuation is not a finish line, it is a practice, a returning to the sacred center. Each time you leave it, you will forget, you will fracture, you will wear the mask again, love the projection, reject the shadow, perform the role, and that's okay. The self does not punish forgetting, it waits. It draws you back each time you are ready. To live from the self is not to become perfect. It is to become available to everything you are without flinching. It is to make room for paradox and hold it like a bowl without spilling. Ask, what is my center beneath my stories, beneath my name? What would I feel if I stopped trying to be anything? What is asking this question right now? That is the self, always behind, always beneath, always waiting. You are not far. You are already within it. You are already enough. You always were. Every journey, every spiral, every search for the self passes through the wound. There is no myth without rupture, no becoming without breaking. Jung knew this. He lived it. He did not theorize the unconscious. He fell into it when his life split open, when his identity collapsed, when the outer world offered no ground and the inner world flooded in. It was in that descent that he found the wound not as an obstacle, but as an opening. He called it the path of the wounded healer, the archetype who suffers not for punishment, but for initiation. You don't escape your wounds, you learn their language. They speak in symptoms and silence, in obsession, in chronic tension, in the story you tell over and over, until you realize you are still inside it. The wound says, something happened here, something was too much, something could not be held, and so it buried itself and took part of you with it. But the wound is not just a scar, it is also a source. It holds the power of transformation. Because when you meet your pain without resistance, you find the part of you that survived it, and that part is radiant, precise, wise. The ones who walk into their own hurt become the ones who can hold others. This is the medicine. This is the gift, not perfection, not healing as a brand, but presence earned through darkness. The myth always turns here. The hero is wounded, the initiate is humbled, the mask is broken, the path is lost, and then something unexpected appears, not a fix, but a flame, small, fragile, but real. To meet the wound, you must sit in the place you avoided, the memory, the ache, the shame, the silence, not to relive it, not to solve it, but to listen without turning away. Because beneath every wound is an unmet need, a grief unsaid, a scream unspoken, a truth unwelcomed. When you sit with it, you begin to remember the wholeness that split, but never died. Jung said your vision will become clear only when you look into your own heart. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakens. The wound is not the enemy of awakening. It is the doorway. When you carry pain consciously, you no longer infect others with it. You hold it like a torch, not a weapon. That is power, not dominance, but rootedness. You no longer need to be unbroken. You need only be present. There is no shame in rupture. The soul is not porcelain. It is gold, melted and reformed again and again. In alchemy, the wound is the nigredo, the black stage where form dissolves and the great work begins. This is not symbolic. It is biological, emotional, ancestral. You are the vessel. You are the fire. You are the metal being shaped. And on the other side of grief, if you walk all the way through, you find compassion, not as sentiment, but as structure. You become someone who can see the wound in others and not turn away. The healer is not the one who fixes. The healer is the one who holds, because they know how it feels to need holding. Ask, what pain have I been circling instead of touching? What story have I repeated instead of rewriting? What part of me still waits to be heard? The answers won't come in words. They'll come in tears, dreams, drawing sudden breath, quiet peace, the absence of panic. They'll come when you stop trying to earn your way back and start listening to what never left. Your wound is not your identity, but it is your teacher. It holds the key to your authenticity, not despite the pain, but because of it. This is the turning flame. The moment the spiral becomes fire, the dark becomes medicine, the myth becomes yours. You are not broken, you are becoming. And the wound is the place the soul chose to begin. You have walked the spiral. You've looked beneath the mask, met your shadow, heard the voice of your inner opposite, felt the self in stillness, and touched the wound that holds the gift. Now you return, not to explain, not to teach, but to live. The return is not the end, it is the integration, the weaving, the slow breath as you re-enter the world with your center intact. You are no longer seeking, you are carrying. You don't need new symbols, you need presence in the ordinary. Jung wrote, that individuation is not escape from the world, but a deeper participation in it. You rejoin the collective, not as a mirror, but as a vessel. You do not speak louder. You listen more fully. You move with awareness, not urgency. You become a quiet axis around which others may begin to settle. The return of the dreamer is not dramatic. It is subtle. You cook differently, speak slower, feel grief with less fear. Hold others without absorbing them. Hold yourself without shame. You are no longer performing life. You are participating in it. You may still feel lost, but now you are not afraid of that, because you know the spiral is still beneath your feet, ready when you need it. The journey repeats, but you are never the same traveler. You may find yourself misunderstood. The world loves the persona more than the self. It loves certainty over becoming, but your presence is not for applause. It is for anchoring. You are not here to be above. You are here to be among, to move through the market with myth in your breath, to answer emails with depth in your spine, to bring the dream into the dinner conversation, not with sermons, but with silence that listens. This is how myths walk. You may be the first in your line to return with eyes open. You may be the dreamer. Your ancestors couldn't protect the artist. They silenced the truth teller. They burned the question they buried. Now you carry them too. Not as ghosts, but as seeds. You are not here to convince. You are here to embody. The archetypes still live, but now they serve. They do not rule. You are no longer driven by the shadow. You walk beside it. You no longer wear the mask unconsciously. You place it down when the time comes. You do not chase the anima or battle the animus. You dance with them both when the moment invites. This is maturity, not in years but in presence. Jung said, "Life has always seemed to me like a plant that lives on its rhizome. Its true life is invisible, hidden in the root structure. What we see is only the bloom, which comes and goes. You are the root, deepened, connected, steady, whether blooming or not. You may forget again, you may fracture, but now you know how to return. You know what silence to sit with, what dreams to write down, what inner faces to listen to. You know where your center is, and it will not abandon you because it is not separate from you. It is you, when you stop trying to be anything else. Now you are the dreamer awake. You walk with the awareness that everyone you meet is also a fragment of a larger story. You speak with reverence, not for dogma, but for mystery. You move through life as if it were myth and know that it is. You are not special, but you are sacred, and that is enough. You were never meant to fix the world. You were meant to live in it, awake, kind-rooted. So come back gently. Let the air touch your skin. Let your old life notice something different in your eyes. Not because you are better, but because you are here. You do not need to explain the journey. You are the proof that it happened. The self walks, now not ahead of you, but with you. And the spiral, though invisible, never ends. You are home, not because the world is safe, but because you know who you are within it. You are whole, not because nothing hurts, but because you are large enough to hold it all. You are the myth lived forward, the dream lived awake, the return that never really left.